Okay, here I am. I think so. Hello, my friends and yogis and people in Facebook land. I have been getting really excited lately about reading about yoga and diving back into my yoga books. So I'm decided to come here live to share with you my favorite yoga books. Some are more beginner, some are more advanced, some are used in my 200-hour training, some will be used in the future for my 300-hour training, and some are, just like good books to have around. So I will start with like the super, super classic, and I'll finish with my favorite one of all time. So if you stick through to the end of the video, I'll share with you my favorite one. So first of all, we start with the classics, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. This is the first ever book that was written just about yoga. Yoga comes from the ancient Indian scriptures of the Vedas and the Upanishads, which are like incredible texts from history. And this is the first book that really took yoga and formulated a path and a definition and like a clear, path of yoga. What does it mean to do yoga? And these are like step-by-step instructions on how to accomplish yoga. This particular translation is done by Sri Swami Satchidananda, and I really, really recommend this specific translation. There are probably hundreds of translations of this book in English, and it really does matter who the translator is, because you want that modern voice. These are very, very ancient texts, and what I love about the yoga is that these ancient texts are still relevant in modern day. So it just is timeless. It penetrates, the yogic wisdom penetrates all of existence. So writings that are thousands of years old are still relevant today. And we find that in a lot of major religions as well. But yoga is not a religion, so don't get confused. Okay, so just to bring a sample out of here. From this book, you have the yamas and niyamas. Let's just start from the very beginning. The first sutra of the Yoga Sutras is now we begin yoga, right? It's setting the stage. The second sutra from the Yoga Sutras is yoga is the cessation of the mind stuff. And they say that if you really think about that first verse for long enough, then you don't need to read the rest of this book. If you really focus on relaxing your mind, calming the fluctuations of the mind, you don't need to read the rest of this book. All of this book is about different techniques, different approaches, different thoughts around how to calm our minds so that we can understand who we truly are. Okay? So the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, number 1. All right, number 2. This is a really good one to have if you just want like a daily dose of inspiration. Super easily digestible, really deep, and it has a quote for every single day of the year. So this one is Meditations from the Mat by Rolf Gates and Katrina Kennison. Okay, so this is really cool because it also teaches you the yogic philosophies, but it teaches you in really bite-sized, digestible, inspiring clips. So, for example, day 65, move a muscle, change a feeling. The old adage, move a muscle, change a feeling, accurately describes the gist of yogic theory. Yogic theory says the mind and body is one, and when we move our mind, our body responds and our breath responds. And when we move our breath and we move our body, our mind responds. So when our minds get stressed, our breath quickens and gets shorter and shallower. And when we deepen our breath, our mind can find a more state of calm, right? So it goes back. So you get these little bite-sized doses of wisdom. There's some amazing stuff in this book, and wow. Okay. Next one, Autobiography of a Yogi. Oh, such a good one. Paramahansa Yogananda. There is a documentary on Gaia called Awake about him, and you can, I think, get it on YouTube as well, which he had an incredible, incredible life, and I really recommend this book. It's him. It's the first self-realized human that wrote an autobiography. And he says that he remembers being in the womb. He remembers, being a really small baby. And he has some incredible stories of growing up with this kind of supernatural connection to spirit and his ability to teach and speak yoga in a way that influenced hundreds of thousands of people and really got the yoga movement moving in the West. One of the people who got the yoga movement moving in the West. All right, Untethered Soul. Here's another one. So this one is by Michael Singer. And this book, I would say it's a little bit more about meditation. But as you may know, yoga and meditation aren't really separate. Yoga, most people think that it's like the physical practice, but it's not. The physical practice is only one of 8 parts of yoga. And meditation is actually more advanced than the yoga postures. And it's really where we're leading. And the yoga postures really should be like a meditation in motion. Okay? So that's that. Actually, let's find a quote from here because it's really, really good. When you contemplate the nature of self, you are meditating. That is why meditation is the highest state. It is the return to the root of your being, the simple awareness of being aware. Once you become conscious of the consciousness itself, you attain a totally different state. You are now aware of who you are. You have become an awakened being. It's really just the most natural thing in the world. This book really talks about how it's the most natural thing in the world to be happy, wild, and free. It's the most natural thing in the world to let go and enjoy life. Good one. All right, let's keep going. I just want to note that before I go to the next book, that one of the niyamas is self-study and study of the sacred texts. So by reading books about yoga, especially ones that are really written with integrity, we can really get to know ourselves through that experience. And it's one of the 10 commandments of yoga. It's one of the attributes of an enlightened person. That we are constantly guided. We're constantly, we're alive. We are living beings that are constantly changing. And it's so important for us to study ourselves. To study ourselves every single day. Because we're living, we're changing. It's fascinating when we really step into, getting to know who we truly are. We start to see that we are changing all the time, and there's always new material coming from our being to be shared with the world, with our loved ones, with our families, with our clients, with our students. So by studying yoga books that are written from a place of integrity, you also keep your finger on the pulse of knowing yourself and studying yourself. And some of the best books, like the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, every time I pick up that book, I learn something new. Every time I pick up that book, it feels like there's freshness in the material. So, all right, next one is BKS Iyengar, Light on Yoga, super, super well known. He also does Light on Pranayama and a couple other books that, Light on the Yoga Sutras as well, which is his translation of the Yoga Sutras. Basically, he's an excellent teacher, an excellent writer, and I highly recommend him. This guy, I also do recommend taking him with a grain of salt. You can see here that, if a student was doing a pose like that in my class, I would adjust him, I would fix him. India and Indian people have a slightly different approach to discipline and, postures and all kinds of things. So, we always need to use personal discretion when we're reading things and decide if the languaging, is right for us, or if we would say it in a different way, in a slightly different way. Much respect to this teacher, Iyengar. He is a master. He was a master. He passed away not that long ago. But, not necessarily his words are the way that I would explain things, but it's a good way to read and interpret in your own words, in your own language. I want to read something from here that's really, really good. A good idea is if you do teach yoga or you do guide, transformational experiences, to find those books that you really love and read quotes at the end of your classes or share quotes with your students. I do that a lot in my courses and my classes. Song of the Soul. This is really beautiful. So if you're with me, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and just listen to this. I am neither ego nor reason. I am neither mind nor thought. I cannot be heard nor cast into words, nor by smell nor sight ever caught. In light and wind I am not found, nor yet in earth and sky. Consciousness and joy incarnate, bliss of the blissful am I. I have no name, I have no life, I breathe no vital air. No elements have molded me, no bodily sheath is my lair. I have no speech, no hands and feet, nor means of evolution. Consciousness and joy am I, and bliss in dissolution. It keeps going, and it's really, really beautiful, and you can see that it sort of touches the same concepts that I read in The Untethered Soul and in the Yoga Sutras, and in Meditations from the Mat, which is the concept of the nature of the soul, the true nature of our being, and it is beyond anything that's temporary. And so the path of yoga is separating what is temporary with what is eternal, and continuing to choose to reside in the eternal space and view everything that's temporary as temporary. And from that perspective, from that place, we can truly and simply just enjoy life if we understand the nature of our eternal soul. And by reading these texts, we start to cultivate that understanding. And it's not about reading a book once. It's about continuing to read, to check in, to contemplate every single day. All right, let's keep going. So let's get a little bit more technical here. So for yoga teachers, I recommend the Yoga Anatomy book by Leslie Kaminoff. He's an incredible anatomy teacher. And even the first few chapters really aren't that technical. It's more talking about, breathing and how the atmosphere is breathing us and how the atmospheric pressure changes slightly next to us when we breathe in. The pressure in our lungs is doing this exchange. And how does that work? It talks about evolution and the spine and our diaphragms and how our cervix at the bottom, our pelvic floor and our diaphragm and our throat are all mirrors of each other. And we can start really understanding the human body and how majestic it is, how absolutely incredible and lucky we are to be inhabiting a human body. And so the more we understand about our own anatomy, the more we can be present in the body and appreciate what we have here and be motivated and excited to take care of this physical body that we're inhabiting. Okay, so Leslie Kaminoff actually has some really good YouTube videos. So if you're interested in learning about yoga anatomy and maybe you don't want to buy the book, you can watch the YouTube videos, and he has some great stuff over there. All right. Next, for yoga teachers as well, Yoga Sequencing by Mark Stevens. So this is one of my favorite parts about teaching yoga, is the opportunity to create creative sequences. And I'm always looking for new ways to put postures together and new kind of sequences to create. So here in this book, you have so many ideas and kind of formulas in which you can then insert poses and ideas and themes for your classes. Like if you want to do a theme about a different chakra or a theme about a different pose. And even for those of us that aren't yoga teachers and we, want to create our own practices at home, this is a great book to have. All right, so now we're getting into even more advanced books, which I'm going to be teaching a 300-hour training sometime in the future. I'm not sure when that's going to be, but these are the books that I'll be using over there. All right, so first of all, we have the Tao of Physics, an exploration of the parallels between modern physics and Eastern mysticism. So this is so powerful and potent because we're realizing these days that the way that the ancient yogis have thought about the world and about their reality is the same. They got to the same conclusions that the modern day scientists are getting to about our reality. So these yogis knew stuff without scientific proof, but they knew things about the body and about the human experience and about the cosmos and about the world before we had scientific instruments to study these things in the way we do today. And this is talking about how when we explore the internal world, it shows us the same things as when we explore the external world. And we've basically conquered the whole planet at this point, and the whole collective is seeing a movement towards internal exploration. So this book is phenomenal in connecting physics with Zen. And if you're a nerd like me, then you'll just have a ball with this book. All right. The Hatha Yoga Pradipica. This one is the classic guide for the advanced practice of yoga. So in my 200-hour training, I tell my students not to get this book yet. I tell them about the book and I quote the book a couple times, but I tell them don't get this book until after you've finished your training and you've waited 1 year. And this is because there is pretty intense stuff in this book. There's pretty intense advanced yoga practices that someone that hasn't been practicing yoga would read this and think it's crazy. Because it is. And like, just to give you a little secret, they talk in here about drinking your own pee, about, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Okay. So, but, it's incredible and activating and inspiring and so cool. I've never drank my own pee, just so you know, but I know people that have, and it's a thing. So if you're interested, check that out. Anyway. So Hatha Yoga Pradipika, I love this translation by Swami Vishnudevananda, okay? And let's see, a quote from here. The purpose of yoga is to prevent one hemisphere of the brain to dominate and to bring a balance between the feminine parts and the masculine parts. To bring a balance between the analytical and logical parts of our brain and the creative and spontaneous parts of our brain. And really to bring us into that balance where we're centered in our central channel of energy. So this, when we get centered in that central channel, we can live a more efficient life and we calm the fluctuations of the mind stuff. So this book is definitely really related to the Yoga Sutras, which is what I spoke about in the beginning. The two classics. This is level 1 classic. This is level 2 classic. And let me tell you that there's some stuff in the back of this book that's pretty crazy too. They talk about levitation here. The vrittis, the siddhis. The siddhis are the special powers that one gains after practicing yoga earnestly and over time. For example, you can do time travel, you can do space travel, astral travel. It talks about how to learn all information about one thing just by being in its presence. How you can also read other people's minds. How you can use your mind power to change things, to like transform things. You can use your mind power to go back in time and choose a different timeline. Okay, so yeah, this book gets pretty crazy too. And in my 200 hour, I don't have them read those parts of the book. Like we go into that later on in studies. All right, favorite yoga book of all time is, of course, the Bhagavad Gita. This specific translation is by Eknath Easwaran, which is definitely the translation that I recommend above all others. And thank you to my OG teacher, Erica Kaufman, for recommending this book. This is actually the same book I had in my 200-hour training that I've carried with me all over the world. This has been in New Zealand, Australia, India, Southeast Asia, Europe, and now it's here with me in Israel. And it has so many notes in it. You can see every page I open up to, there's just underlines and notes, because every single time I pick up this book, I read something new, I learn something new, I get to know myself a little bit better, I connect more deeply to yoga every single time. So let's do it right now. Those who live in wisdom see themselves in all, and see all in themselves. Those who live in wisdom see themselves in all and see all in themselves. It's just so rich. Like there's so much there to unpack and to contemplate. And really, when we contemplate those ideas and theories, it helps to bring us a deeper sense of peace and contentment in our lives. Every single person is a reflection of us, and all people also live within us. So we don't have to be jealous, right? Because we know that any aspect that we witness in another is also alive in ourselves. We don't have to be greedy for things outside of us because we know all is living within us. And we don't have to be judgmental towards other people because we know that whatever we're witnessing in them is just another aspect of ourselves. And how relieving is that, right? And how beautiful is that? That instead of judging another, we can say, oh, what is this that I'm judging about myself? What is this that I would like to clean up in my life? What is this that I'm complaining about in another person when it's really just a guide showing me the way to my own healing? It's a guide showing me the way of what is the work that I need to do with myself, right? The triggers are just showing us where the work needs to be done. Wherever we're judging another is just showing us where the work needs to be done on ourselves. It's a beautiful thing. All right, so that is my yoga book collection for now. I have more, but that's what I wanted to show you for now. And just to kind of, show off my book. This is my yoga teacher training manual that I wrote. It's full of amazing materials and information and little graphics that I drew and my beautiful designer, Leanna Berlin-Fischler, helped me with. And yeah, this is the 4th edition of my yoga teacher training manual. So just wanted to plug that into. It's not for sale, but I am working on 2 books actually. One is just about my yoga journey and my, path of how I found my spirituality and, what are the tools that I use to bridge the gap between modern living and spirituality. And the other book that I'm working on, that I'm writing, is called The Yoga of Business. And it's different than, not to be confused with the business of yoga. The yoga of business is how, we look at our soul and this is everlasting. And then we treat our body as if it's, an emanation, a temple for our soul. And our businesses should basically be the same thing. It's just another layer of our extension. So for entrepreneurs, for people in quote unquote power, for people that are, in economics and in commerce, it's so important. And there's a big message coming through me that we need to view our businesses as a temple for our soul as well. Just like our bodies are a temple for our soul. And so how do we do that? How do we run our business successfully, abundantly, with passion and joy, and take good care of the temple, right? Take good care of the soul while we're doing that. And that means, because yoga means union, so it's unity. It's everything is a part of it, right? We have there's no such thing as a closed system. You can't separate yourself from the rest of the reality or the rest of the world. So how do we create these holistic businesses that are really emanations of our soul? So this is my projects that I'm working on now. They'll probably be out in 2023. And sending you so much love, soul family, yogis. Drop, your favorite yoga books in the comments below. I'd be really, really excited and interested to hear what your recommendations are for yoga books. I have a few more, so maybe I'll pop on another time and give you kind of round 2 of my recommended yoga books. Much love. So many blessings and yoga to all of you. Bye-bye.